So what we're going to do, 5 of the most essential spec options that I think you need when you're out there buying your first or your second or your third BMW M140i. Welcome back to another YouTube video, and in this video we're going to talk about some of the spec options you can get on an M140i. So we've just taken in this Melbourne red M140i, and what I think is very well spec'd. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pick out five of the most essential spec options that I think you need when you're out there buying your first or your second or your third BMW M140i. Okay, so an important spec option, and I know a lot of people go on about it, is the larger ProNav screen. So it's the larger screen compared to obviously that you get the smaller one. Is more than just a bigger screen though. The resolution is slightly better. I believe you can also get split screen, which I don't think you can get on the smaller screen. This control unit here is slightly nicer, so it's bigger, it's nicer to touch, it's a bit smoother. The other one's quite, I don't know, feels a bit small. It's very hard, quite sturdy. Yeah, so 100% ProNav is the first spec option you should look out for when you're buying a M140i. The second most essential spec option on an M140i, something you should definitely be looking out for, is heated seats. So they don't come spec'd with heated seats from factory. It's definitely an important option, and I personally don't buy cars unless it does have the heated seats function. So the third spec option, and this is a caveat, because all the Shadow editions come with these two features, are Harman Kardon and cruise control. Now Shadow editions, which are 2017 67 onwards, have this spec option included from factory, but the pre-Shadow, so pre-2017, they don't have these spec options included, which are Harman Kardon and cruise control. So if you're going to buy M140 before 2017, just make sure those two things, especially Harman Kardon, is spec'd with the car. So the fourth spec option on these cars, for some people it matters, for me it really does matter, is folding mirrors, so electric folding mirrors. So as you can see on this one, just press to clear the lock button on the key. Oh wait, I don't know what happened there. That's a new feature. Oh, this is concierge service. Nice. Okay, so the fourth spec option on these cars, which I think personally is quite important, other people may not think so, is the electric folding mirrors. So you hold down the lock button and the mirrors fold by themselves. It's a nice touch, especially if you're parking on the road. Instead of folding your mirrors in manually, you just hit the lock button and it goes in. I also think it looks much better when the mirrors are folded in, and again, it's just a nice thing to have. So the fifth and final spec option, which I think is quite important, is adaptive suspension. What adaptive suspension does, it's about £500 from factory. It just makes it much more comfortable when you're going over the bumps. It makes it slightly nicer when you're turning in. And it is actually a very desirable option, adaptive suspension. So that would be my final recommendation if you're looking for an M140i. So those are some of the spec options that we look for when we're actually buying a car, and we hope that provides some help that when you're looking for an M140, there's some of the spec options. But you do get a lot of other spec options, not necessarily from factory. So for example, a spec option is PDC, park distance control. And what that does is front parking sensors. So that doesn't actually come standard from factory. And you know it has front parking sensors because on the front bumper, you'll have little sensors on the sides, and it's just a nice little touch to have. So another spec option that you can get on these cars, which aren't standard from factory, is the electric seats. This car doesn't have it, but over here there'll be controls. So you have two controls, one for the back, one for the actual seat, which moves back and forward. So again, that's a nice spec option to have. Some people it's essential, some people it's not. It does make the seat slightly heavier, which is an excuse maybe for not getting it if you're trying to save weight. But again, it is a nice spec option, but for me it's not an essential. I'd rather have other spec. For example, Harman Kardon I'd say is more important, and auto gearbox is more important. Maybe some people prefer the reversing camera. But yeah, that's just another spec option you get, which is the electronic seats. So BMW being BMW, not much actually comes standard from factory. So a few other spec options that you can get. Firstly, you can get reverse camera. Another spec option, BMW adaptive lights. Now, on the 1 Series, they're not the best, but you can still get them. And what that does, when you're going around the corner, the light actually bends to the corner so you can see the whole road. So BMW adaptive lights is another spec option. Another one you can get is the high beam assist. High beam assist you would know because on here there will be a camera there, and what that does is you click the high beam assist when it's dark at night. The high beam will just go on automatically. So again, it's a nice to have. I wouldn't say it's essential because it's not difficult to put the high beam on yourself, but there we go, that's a spec option. A few others, you can get the speed limit display on the dash, and that tells you what the speed limit of the road is. So again, that's a nice one to have, but again, not essential. And this isn't a spec option, but it is nice to do, is this car is fitted with the optional body kit. So this one is actually the KSB body kit, which includes the M4 style wing mirror caps. You do have the front splitter, which this car doesn't have, but you do, on this one, you have the side skirts. You have the rear diffuser, the KSB rear diffuser with the carbon exhaust tips, and you have the rear spoiler finished in gloss black. So that isn't a spec option you can get, but a lot of people do put it on their cars just because it makes the car look a lot nicer. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. When you're buying your next M140, you can look at some of the spec options. Like I said, there's 5 or 6 of my essential spec options, and then you have another 10 to 15 other spec options you can get that aren't from standard from factory, that maybe you think are nice. For example, I've had customers who will not buy a car if it doesn't have electric seats, who won't buy a car if it doesn't have the rear view camera or adaptive lights, for example. But for me, things like the Harman Kardon auto gearbox, they're a lot more important than things like electric seats. But you can make up your mind what you want in an M140i, so hopefully this video was helpful. And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that video. My name's Ish from Golta Automotive. We specialize in M performance cars. We actually sell hundreds and hundreds of M140i's. So if you are looking for an M140i, give us a shout. If you're looking to sell an M140i, please also give us a shout. Or if you just want some advice on, it doesn't have to be spec options, could be what to look out for mechanically, engine-wise, interior-wise, we're more than happy to help. So you'll find all our details below somewhere down here. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to hear from you soon.